Everyone, morning, happy Friday. So I just got out of a really blissful meditation and I had a few downloads coming through, just some clarity around some things that I felt compelled to share with you on this rainy Friday. So one of the biggest mistakes that I think I made when I sort of started out on what I now know is my spiritual journey, but I didn't know it at the time. But 5 or 6 or even I think it's actually 7 years ago now, I was trying to figure out, I knew I wanted to do something different. I was sort of unfulfilled in my job. I wasn't unhappy, but it wasn't like setting my world on fire. And I was trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be. I knew I wanted to change, but I didn't know what that was. I was in a job. I loved the people I worked with, but like I said, the job itself didn't really kind of set my world on fire. So yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I think was just trying to figure out my next steps, as it were, using my head. So I would sit there sort of literally listing out like my skills. There's even like a graphic I remember that was like, what do you love? What could you get paid for? How the world would benefit and stuff. And I was trying to like figure it out, like looking at the sort of skill sets that I already had and figuring out maybe like which direction I might want to take my life in. But the thing is that there's a really great quote from Einstein, which comes in at this point, which is when you're trying to solve the problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem in the first place, it's not going to work. And what that basically means is that you need to elevate your thinking, change your thinking, think differently in order to get something different. So yeah, what I didn't really understand at the time was that I was trying to figure out what I wanted, like what my next iteration was going to be, like what my next steps were going to be. I was trying to figure it out with this brain, with this mini mind, as it were. And the analogy that kind of dropped in my meditation was that is like trying to find an answer to quantum physics by, like, imagine you're in a library and you're in the kids section, and it's like trying to find an answer to quantum physics or a book on quantum physics in the kids section of the library, and being surprised and getting frustrated by not being able to find the answer when clearly the book that you're looking for is just not in that section of the library. Now, here's the thing, is that you are the whole library, but you need to go to a different part of the library that perhaps you haven't accessed yet. So you need to basically access this higher states of consciousness, these different parts of the library that you haven't accessed yet, in order to get those answers that you're looking for. So yeah, you are the library, and the point is that if you're struggling to find the answers that you're looking for, whether it's like, okay, I know I want to do something different, but I don't know what that is, then you've got to start looking in the different parts of you. And so this sort of then leads into this idea that, okay, well, if I want to go to these different parts of the library, how do I get to that? And the different parts of the library, if you imagine an iceberg. So we know that the subconscious mind is about 95% underwater, like an iceberg has about 95% underwater. And the conscious mind is responsible for about 5%. So if you imagine that visual in your mind right now, they say it's 95%. I think it's probably even more that's actually subconscious. So the subconscious part of the iceberg that is submerged underwater, that is your subconscious you, your subjective you. This is the aspect of you that is just, full of conditions, full of programming. It's the efficient part of you. It's like the computer part of you, that has learnt programs so you can act efficiently, so you don't have to learn to walk every day. You don't have to learn to talk every day. You don't have to learn, what your favourite food is or how to cook it. There are certain programs that are in you that are designed to make you more of an efficient human being. So there's a process and a reason for that. But there's also, maybe some maladaptive beliefs, conditions, things like that, which are affecting your behaviour. And this is all happening in the subconscious, submerged part of the iceberg. And so if you're finding yourself feeling frustrated, then it's really just a sign that you're trying to get the answer from that submerged part of the iceberg, the bit that's under the water, that is full of conditions, full of beliefs and so on and so forth. So what we need to do is if you imagine yourself literally in the water around the iceberg, you need to sort of swim up. And we need to come to the surface, and we need to start accessing this, the bit of the iceberg that it is above the water, this 5%, which is not only the conscious mind, but actually it's also, if you go up right to the tip of the iceberg, it's your divine consciousness, right? So that's the key, is that you need to actually start accessing the divine part of you, the super conscious, if you will, like your divine mind. So you've kind of got these two parts of you. You've got this mini mind that is in your brain, that's actually your supercomputer, that we should really only be giving problems to solve, right? But we need to get the problems, or we need to get the answers from our divine mind, which is up higher, a higher level up. So I just made some notes on it. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of covering off everything that I said. So yeah, so basically we need to start activating and accessing that higher part of us. So for some people, that's meditation, so accessing and just plugging back into our divine source, our consciousness, our spirit, that aspect of us that is infinite, this prosperity, this divine consciousness, creativity that actually flows through us from our crown into our bodies and then gets expressed through us. So that's the sort of higher level way of looking at it. But for some people, maybe you don't meditate, then how do we start to activate that? And one way you can get into activating your divine consciousness, also sort of termed as your soul, your heart's desires, is to get into imagination, right? So an exercise I'd really encourage you to do, if you are thinking about, okay, I want to get some answers and I want to take different steps in my life, rather than trying to figure it out with this mini mind here, I want you to get into imagination and activation. So you're activating that higher states of consciousness. So like I said, here is a fun exercise for you to try. So if you are in that place where you're trying to figure things out, and this is that time of year as well, we're starting to wind down from the year, leading into the New Year's resolution season, I'd encourage you to sit down with a piece of paper and just complete this sentence over and over again. And the sentence is, wouldn't it be cool as fuck if, and ... All right. So that's going to start to activate this part of your mind that is more in the dreaming state, the imagination state. And that's when you start to actually activate your soul's desires, because your soul knows what you want. Your brain doesn't. You need to give that problem from your soul to your brain to solve, basically. So get into that practice of wouldn't it be cool as fuck if, and just see what comes out. Because this is an important part of a step-by-step process that you can go through to awaken your imagination and start to really consciously become aware of what it is that you truly want in your life. But that has to come from, and it originates from, your soul rather than your mind. So there are actually 6 really important steps in terms of consciously planning your life and creating your life. The first one is that awareness, the awakening almost, where you are swimming up to the surface, like I say, and there's this acknowledgement of where you are right now, like an honest, radical acceptance of your status quo, like looking at where you are. Before you even look at where you're going to go, you need to kind of look at where you are right now. So there's that first step is awareness. The second step is activation, and that's this bit that we're talking about right now, activating your heart, activating your imagination, getting into your soul's desires, using meditation, using exercises like this. And then the third step is tuning into your purpose, like your reason why that's so important, getting into how great that feels, why do I want to create that vision, or why is that so cool as fuck, right? So when we start to answer the question of why, then the what and the how comes later. All too often I see people, when they're trying to figure out what they want to do, they're thinking about how they're going to do it already, or what that is, when they haven't really gotten to the why. You need to start with you. You need to start with why it's important for you, why it's a full body yes for you. And that answer comes from your divine consciousness, comes from your soul, comes from your heart. It doesn't come from here. So tuning in, step 3 is tuning into your purpose and the reason why that would be so cool as fuck. And then the 4th step is really important. The 4th step is identity, because this is all about your psychology. Because let me tell you, it's about 20% strategy and 80% psychology. So if you haven't sort of dealt with the little gremlins that are in your mind, like the disempowering language that comes up when you start to even write the sentence, wouldn't it be cool as fuck? You'll probably already start feeling like, oh yeah, I could do that, but it probably won't work because ... So there's those disempowering gremlins that are in your programming, in your system, that are holding you back. So in order to create lasting change, you've got to expand your identity, not contract it. So looking at sort of cleaning house of your conditioning, those conditions and the programs that exist in that submerged part of your iceberg, cleaning house, releasing those beliefs, changing those beliefs, like compassionately inquiring and questioning those beliefs. But you need to clear those first before you even start looking at how you're going to achieve it. Because if you don't do that, then anything you try and implement, any goals you try and set are going to be coming from like a place of disempowerment. So that's step 4 is the identity, and that's all like subconscious reprogramming, looking at all the beliefs, the blocks, the obstacles, etc., etc. Step 4. And then step 5. Step 5 is your strategy. So that's like breaking things down, bringing those dreams and those visions that you have for yourself and breaking them down into tangible goals, whether that's sort of bigger picture 5-year goals, but then breaking it on down into like yearly goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals, and actually sort of identifying, okay, if this is my vision, I know where I want to go, I know why I want it for me. How am I going to make that happen on a tangible level and actually start to break that down? And then the last stage, step 6, is the embodiment. And that's all about, behavior change dynamics and actually implementing little shifts in your behavior, by changing your behaviors, changing your habits. And it's not about overloading yourself. So it's starting with like focusing down into like the most important thing that you could do today to take you one step closer to those bigger goals. So it's just this huge sort of filtration system. We often will call this like the creative process. But essentially it's about receiving the information through from your crown at the top, and then just filtering it down through your system, through the filtration system that is your belief system. And then once we go through that, it's about creating these strategic goals and then actually implementing them. So the 6 steps again are awareness, activation, purpose, identity, strategy, and then finally step number 6 is the embodiment. So these 6 steps, I wish I had them 6-7 years ago when I was first starting out. I didn't know that there was a process to this, and I was sort of flailing around in the strategy part, which was step 5. I hadn't done any of the step 4, step 3, steps 2, step 1, hadn't done any of that. So I was finding myself, making slow progress, making some progress in some areas, but then, still really not quite sure which direction to go in. So, these steps have come to me over time through learning through lots of different philosophies and modalities and cosmologies and things like that. So I've put together, these strategies that I do for myself. Like I do this every quarter. I will do a sort of a review, a life review with myself, where I check in with what my heart's desiring. I'm checking in with the empowered identity or the identity that I'm creating from. From that comes my commitments in terms of what I want to see create, the reality I want to magnetize to myself. And from that comes the little embodied actions that I can take, the small little 2mm shifts that I can do in my behavior. So if this has interested you and you want to explore more of this, like I say, try the exercise today that we did, which is all about activating the heart. That wouldn't it be cool as fuck exercise. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to explore all of the 6 steps, then I invite you to check out the next group course that I'm running. I'm super excited to have brought this all together finally. So many people have asked me about this, and I'm finally in a position to run it as a group program, which is really exciting. I love being in groups. I love facilitating change for people. I love facilitating an environment where they can have huge successes, find out what's important for them, and have their own breakthroughs. And so I created this group course, We start on Monday, the 31st of October, and it's a 6-week course. We go through those 6 steps, and you get to start to consciously create your life, but from an empowered place. You know, like I said, we deal with the 80% of the psychology aspect, because it's such an important step that a lot of courses, whether it's life planning or whatever, tend to not miss out on purpose, but just don't necessarily, talk about it enough. But it is such a huge part, looking at your story, looking at the place where you're creating from. So that's a really important piece of this. But, to build up to that is obviously the 3 or 4 steps before that as well. So I invite you to check out the link that's in my bio. The link to the course is in there. Like I say, we start on Monday the 31st. And if you have done that exercise, I'd love to know what your wouldn't it be cool as fuck goals. If you could drop them in the comments below, share with everybody else. And if you have generally any comments about this, maybe you have your own process or step-by-step that you do. Maybe I've missed one. I'd love to hear your comments and your own experience about perhaps your own path of awakening or any other problems or struggles that you're trying to figure out. Just drop them in the comments below. Let's have a chat about it. And if this has been helpful, obviously then also drop that in the comments below. Let me know if you want to hear about more about part of this and anything else. So otherwise, have an absolutely amazing Friday. And wouldn't it be cool as fuck if today was the best day of your life? So with that, take it easy, and I'll speak to you very soon.